to the Grappling With podcast. Dr. Chris Hardy and William Walker will take a deep dive into topics covering wellness and prevention, performance, recovery, and injury management. Our mission is to provide the latest science-based information to help you get the most out of your grappling journey, both on and off the mats, and help you overcome any challenges you may be grappling with. Dr. Hardy is a licensed physician and BJJ practitioner, but the contents of the podcast are meant for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Please seek out personalized care from your own medical provider prior to implementing any medical treatment or intervention.
I'm also licensed as a retard. So my disclaimer is that.
Did you do any postgraduate training?
I've done a lot of post training. I've done a lot of post.
Nice.
Now,
nice.
With that license that I obtained, that means I make dumb jokes, so don't hold it against anybody I know. I don't represent anybody. No one agrees with me.
You know, that kind of license is a lot of responsibility.
It is a lot of responsibility.
And it's quite a bit.
And I'd like you to put some respect on my name.
So when I say, like, Bill?
Yeah.
Or the way I say it?
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
Don't sound so
flippant and
I was going a different route, but yeah.
A little deference to when I'm saying William Walker.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I like it.
Chris, how have you been?
I've been all right, man. I've been pretty a little beat up this week, I think.
Yeah, you look it a little bit.
Yeah. That's okay. I always look like that, so you never know how I am.
What happened? Were you just training a lot? Or?
Yeah. Well, I had some hard rounds and stuff. Yeah.
That'll happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going free. We're, as Tom Petty said, we're free balling.
I think it's free falling.
Free balling.
No, it's free falling.
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
You're such a liar.
It's only 30 years I've been singing free balling.
No, you have not.
Hey, I'm not hating on that. I'm just saying that that's actual free falling.
Respect.
Yeah.
With that, did you watch a little grappling match this weekend from Mikey Musumeci?
Yes.
So we also had a request to start putting stuff on the screen when we talk about it, kind of like most podcasts do. So that's going to be more work for Olivia.
What?
Yep.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
She wasn't even listening.
No. She's collecting her coins on Bingo Blitz.
Oh, shush your face.
But yeah, I think it's helpful. I don't, me, I have no chops in that.
Right. You got a new phone.
I got a new phone.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't, because it's too high speed. Even the tech people couldn't figure out what was wrong.
Yeah, that's not
it. Said bring it into the store.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but that's the level that we're dealing with.
That's what you're dealing with. It's just very rudimentary on my part. But yeah, it's always helpful to throw stuff up on the screen.
Plug in a little quick clip that's playing right now, and you can see just a moment of what we're going to be referencing.
Okay.
And that's Mikey basically killed a guy's leg completely.
I didn't see a tap, though.
Oh, he didn't tap.
That's what I'm saying.
He's in a cast today, though.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Full leg.
I'm sure.
From literally like hip to ankle, full cast.
Yeah, I don't, for the life of me, don't understand why there wasn't a tap. And even Mikey was saying he heard pops and.
Oh, Mikey said that today on his Instagram, he said that it sounded like cardboard ripping.
Ooh.
Over and over and over again. It was a 10-minute match, and Mikey went from K-guard into his little Mikey lock, which is kind of where you're using your face and neck to peel the knee open, or peel on the foot while you're locking down the knee and hip. So it's effectively a heel hook.
Effectively, yeah.
But you're using your whole body to twist it. It's a little different than the traditional, and it puts a tremendous amount of torque on.
Oh my gosh, dude!
This guy's foot was backwards.
Yeah,
and he just would not tap.
Let me ask you: when you were watching it, were you yelling at the screen?
Well, oh my gosh, I could hear him.
I was
going, no,
tap,
tap. I was like, what is he watching?
I was in the office and she was in the bedroom across the hall, or down the hall, not even across. And I was just in there with my cat. And I'm just, I guess
Yelling.
I was yelling.
Yeah.
And I was watching on my phone.
Yeah.
And then all I hear is, Bill! And of course, I'm so into it, I had to pause it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yelling.
Yeah. And she's like, what are you doing? Just said, jiu-jitsu!
Back and forth. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then she didn't respond. And then I went back to watching a horror movie.
It was.
Yeah. Because I was actually watching it like a horror movie where I put my fingers in front of my face. Like, I don't block it, but I like open up my fingers. And then I kind of like pass back and forth, like where I can't see the knee, but I can see his face.
That made my hands started sweating. I'm like, the whole thing, man. It just, yeah, but that was rough.
It was pretty gnarly, especially because it was probably 6 minutes of it. Maybe more.
Probably.
Where he was in deep and actually even crazier, the guy like didn't really wince.
Yeah, I don't know.
He didn't even really like there was a couple times where he threw his like back to the mat to try to relieve pressure. Yeah. And you might see like a little bit of like a ooh, you know.
Dude.
But those Mongolians,
I don't know what
they
it
got
was.
that Genghis Khan blood.
They got something going on where they're not flinching.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to try to torture one of those guys.
No, they're not.
You're not getting any information.
Right. And and then there was a moment towards the end when, because Mikey, he got a little tunnel vision as he was talking about, and then he went to attack the back with a minute left. But right before he gets to the back, you see he enters, I think, the other leg. And the guy puts his leg up kind of like combat base or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But his foot has no tension.
Nothing.
To it. It was like a noodle.
So there's
and it was facing a weird direction.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like your eyes when you wake up.
Me? Oh, you haven't seen that horror show. Let me tell you, it's rough.
You should see what Bill's eyes look like when I choke him sometimes.
Okay.
His eyes get so wonky.
It does. Actually, one of them starts fluttering and the other one just goes straight like west.
Dude, we got to get a close-up of that.
It's weird. It's one just goes like soft and kind of starts squinting, and then the other's going over here, and I'm just like, yeah, it was good.
You have a picture of what is that?
You know what it's like? It's like Mad Eye from Harry.
Yeah.
Oh, that too.
Crazy Eyes. Yeah.
Crazy Eyes from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
Mad Eye. Yeah,
Mad Eye Moody.
Mad Eye Moody. Yeah.
That's literally what it is.
I like it.
Can't even control the damn thing.
Man, all I got is, but when you get a joint ripped apart like that the brain is in like, nope, and it will shut everything down.
Yeah.
You're not going to be putting weight on that sucker. You're not going to do, and much less, we don't know if there's a really vulnerable nerve along the lateral or outside part of the knee that passes right under the common peroneal nerve. You know, when people get leg kicked and their calf kicked and that's the nerve. So that could have been damaged too, depending on what happened as well.
Imagine
who knows?
Everything's damaged.
It's not good.
Because there was points where you could see his quad folding over the bone.
Dude,
and like,
to me, it's like,
and that's what that was with Demetrius Johnson. He was on the commentary.
Yeah.
They were trying to figure out like, why isn't he tapping?
No.
And they were like, well, he's got good sized quads.
Dude,
you guys are just fishing. Just say the guy's ridiculous and he's not going to walk for the next 6 months.
I was going to say, he's never going to train whatever.
My point is, you can have damage that bad where you're not going to be the same again.
Right.
No matter what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's not worth it.
Yeah.
No.
Only different. I mean, it's literally the same thing that Vinny Magalhaes did with Craig Jones. The only reason that stopped was because Craig was like, "This is the grossest thing I've ever seen."
Yeah.
He doesn't.
That was that submission underground. Wasn't it?
And then the ref stepped in and was like, "That's gross."
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Well, it's already broken."
It's one of those things. It's like, why do I have to come in here and tell you?
Yeah. And Vinny was like, "Well, it's already broken. Just keep ripping on it."
No.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
No.
Also hasn't competed since.
Yeah, that's a public service announcement for everyone.
Yeah, that was pretty gnarly. I was trying to think of this because someone asked, slightly off, but on topic. Is the MCL on the outside of the knee? Oh, son of a bitch! I told someone.
So the way we think about this, just real quick, anatomic position. Bill, imagine we're looking.
What does that mean?
So when we are taught anatomy, whatever, medical school, PT school, whatever, whenever you go through formal anatomy training, you have to have a reference for naming things. In other words, a position thing. Like if you're traveling somewhere, you have to have, like, it's north of something or it's south of something. Okay. You have to have that
North Pole.
Yeah, you have to have something to focus on. So anatomic position is something that when we learn anatomy, it's basically you look at someone from the front, their hands are open. It's a goofy looking thing. Their neck is to the side, but basically it allows you
like
to...
Like a game operator.
Yeah, well,
yep.
Very similar to that.
Yep.
So when you look at, when someone says outside is a terrible term for anatomy. I know what you mean by that. I know what people
say that for reference. No, but it was a retard in the gym that said that.
But I know what people mean by inside versus outside. And so what most people mean by outside is the lateral aspect. Is like if we're coming down the, so if you have your two legs together, what people call the inside is called the medial part of the knee.
Say it again.
What people call the inside of the knee is the medial part. Yeah.
Okay.
What people call the outside, medial. What people call the outside is the lateral. Okay. So
like latissimus. The lat.
Kind of, yeah. It's part of the, I like it. I like how you went that way. Mm-hmm. But people that go, that say inside and outside, it's like, well, inside the knee, does that mean actually in the joint? Do you see what I'm saying? Or outside the knee? That could mean anything. So MCL literally means medial collateral ligament, which is the collateral, which is that. So the collateral ligaments are the ones that provide stability. Without a visual here.
Should it be lateral?
What?
Rather than collateral?
No. No, because they're not. They're both medial and lateral.
Okay.
Okay. So what they do is they, on both sides, they provide a stabilization so the knee doesn't, you know how we always bend the knee front and back? Mm-hmm. It doesn't bend side to side? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because of the collateral ligaments.
Okay.
Okay. If it is bending.
Which is the medial.
The medial collateral ligament is the one.
MCL.
And the lateral collateral ligament is the LCL.
Which someone like me would say that's on the outside of the knee.
Correct. Which is the lateral.
In case you couldn't see my face when I said it was some retard in the gym, I did tell them it was me.
Yeah, I figured it was.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I was talking to someone, but I said...
Well, you were talking about yourself in the third person. It's fine.
Right. Fourth person, actually.
That's because it wasn't actually you. It was someone else. That's very true.
Look at the big brain on me.
Look at you. But yeah, but anyway, where were we going?
Well, one, I was wondering like what ligaments that guy probably tore.
All of them.
Right. And, and then there was someone in the gym talking about the soreness, and I said the MCL was on the outside of the knee, like it was a thick piece of bacon.
It is a thick piece of bacon on the inside of the knee, or the medial side of the knee. You almost got me. What's interesting also about there is a difference. It's very important. They're not equal ligaments. The MCL is also anatomically connected to the meniscus, the medial meniscus. Whereas
you said that animatronics name again. What is that? What do you mean?
Anatomically?
Yeah.
It means it's by the anatomy, it's connected. Anatomically connected means that it's part of the normal anatomy. Okay. So the MCL is actually connected to the medial meniscus, where the LCL, the lateral collateral ligament, is not connected. It's free from the lateral meniscus. So oftentimes when there's a medial knee injury, it's very common to have the MCL and the medial meniscus damaged because of that connection, because they're kind of connected together. The guy probably tore his ACL, which is one of the internal ligaments that prevents forward and backwards translation on the knee.
Okay, yeah. When I've had a little knee tweak, I remember you doing that little test.
It's called the Lockman's or anterior drawer. One of those tests where we want to make sure I'm not able to pull your tibia like a drawer far forward, because that's not good. You know, you don't want it sliding forward like that.
Is that probably when we've seen people land that Saluev stretch submission that when they get tapped and it's pretty severe, and then when they stand up, their knee starts buckling backwards? Is that? ACL damage?
No, so buckling backwards.
Yeah, like it looks like it hyperextends and they're just taking a regular step.
That's a posterior posterior cruciate. Cruciate mean cross is what it means. So
sounds like a Harry Potter curse.
Yeah, it does. Cruciate. It is like cruciatus, right?
Cruciate.
Yeah.
We got to get a
wand. A wand would be very cool. Those prevent forward and backwards translation of the knee. Because if you think about what the knee is, it's the femur, which is that big top leg bone, and pretty much the tibia, which is the bigger of the two bottom leg bones. And that joint, the cruciates prevent forward and backward sliding. So the forward sliding is prevented, of the bottom is prevented by the anterior cruciate, and backward sliding is prevented by the posterior cruciate.
Because the anterior is the ACL.
That's right. Anterior cruciate ligament. That's what ACL stands for, and PCL is posterior. So that's what all that means.
Told you got a post degree.
You got something going on.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Gianni Grippo got hit with that, and that's at the ADCC trials.
So the point is, it's hard to say because knees, and if you see that backward buckling, probably something bad's going on back there too.
You know that submission I'm talking about, the salutative stretch where
someone's
exactly on their back, and it's like a knee bar almost. But
pretty much, it's horrendous looking. Yeah.
So that fella, he's going to be in some trouble for the next year, probably.
At least, I would say. That's not a good... Well, I'd have to see what the extent of this knee damage is, but it's not good.
We also, we came across... We had a question, or a couple things came in, but also a YouTube comment. And I just figured we would touch on it.
Okay.
Because they just were adding 2 cents to some TRT stuff that we were talking about. It was actually on the last episode, our hobbyist losers.
Oh yeah, that one.
But they had said something. This is old D. Crawford.
All right.
But this is what he said. He said, just remember, because I think we talked about TRT a little bit. But he wanted to add, just remember, quote, just remember as well that even with us who are on TRT, that isn't putting you at a super physiological levels of test, we're still getting benefits that a person who is not on TRT wouldn't. On TRT, our levels are much, much more stable, especially if you're injecting multiple times a week and not fortnightly.
That's every 2 weeks.
Worse. Okay. Yeah. And aren't affected by things like bad sleep or stress. The recovery and strength lean tissue gains are still pretty apparent. Now, couple things on that I had questions that came up. Because part of me is like, I agree. But then part of me, one is, do people take multiple shots a week?
Yep.
Is that a thing? I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So there's many ways to dose this thing. And matter of fact, there are many that would argue that multiple times a week, like they'll say every 2 days or so, you would take your weekly dose and divide it. Let's say you divide it into 3 or 4.
If I do 10 milliliters once a week, I'm just going to split that up.
Yeah, exactly. Just for example.
Yeah.
And that more closely, the theory of that is it more closely mimics your regular secretion of, of how it would be.
Keeping us flatter.
Yeah.
Is that
more
common? Because I even before I was seeing my current doctor, they never brought up doing multiple a week.
Yeah, well,
if anything, it was 2 weeks was like their standard.
But you look at when people dose cream, their topicals
daily.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with the delivery mechanism. It's the needle. Honestly. But
because with the creams, I was daily.
Yeah.
It was every night.
So ideally, you would have more, then you don't get as many peaks in what we call troughs, as it comes down, right? So,
which is the 2 week thing. I always recommend people
go to weekly.
Not do.
Yeah. I was doing,
especially if you need a lot, like if you're in the dirt, you're going to feel the end of that 2 weeks.
For sure. Yeah. And I was doing twice a week for a while to test it out. And seem to work about the same for me. I mean, it's what I noticed.
Yeah.
But theoretically, it's correct. More,
maybe I'll try. I think maybe I'll try it.
Yeah.
Do a 2 a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
did it for a while, and like I said, it's individual. A lot of people, depending on how you feel, it will keep more of a steady state of so I like that. The other thing about not being susceptible to
that was the other thing I want to mention was he said they're not. Well, let me read that part. On TRT, our levels are much more stable and aren't affected by things like bad sleep or stress. I had a little bit of a bugaboo with that.
Yeah,
part.
so
Mr. Crawford.
Yeah, so I understand what he's saying. So, when people all the time, I know one of the so-called hacks to try to get, those people that are trying to take testosterone inappropriately at a younger age, they'll like get a bad sleep on purpose and drink a whole bunch the night before. Will artificially suppress, your blood levels of testosterone. But that's very transient.
Yeah.
Stress and poor sleep, all that stuff is a form of stress. It all affects the hormonal system. Just because you're getting a supply of testosterone doesn't mean you don't have other things acting on it, like aromatase, right, that converts it to estrogen. Cortisol can be inhibitory at the receptor sites themselves. Yeah. I mean, that's not exactly true, but I would say it is more it can be more consistent if you dose it correctly, though.
And I think I'm being a little silly with him also, but I think and I don't think he's literally saying like if you are on TRT you're not going to have those things. So as I answer or respond, I'm not thinking that that's necessarily what he's saying. But for uneducated people, because obviously he has experience and stuff like
exactly.
that, is my sleep has always been like I've always battled with pretty crappy sleep. I'm also someone that doesn't typically need I don't feel like I need 8 hours. Like I'm kind of one of those people that I feel like I can actually feel pretty good off 5 or something like that.
I was in the Navy with a guy that at 5 hours was just legit. Yeah. And they're called chronotypes. It's a thing. Some people, there are little single nucleotide polymorphisms in our nervous system, different that control the regulatory mechanisms for sleep. Some people really do need less sleep. It's not, but don't think that it's not a whole bunch of, it's not a large section of the population. It's a relatively small one that actually can do that. And they usually will self-select into jobs. Oh yeah. Do you see what I mean?
Sure.
That are more demanding with sleep.
Yeah.
And they do well with that typically.
And when I got on TRT, it does help with my sleep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like not denying that, not even for a second. But it didn't make it so my sleep was then cured.
For sure.
There's things that I notice that help tremendously with my sleep on top of the TRT.
Right.
Which the TRT absolutely does help with the sleep. But like for me, when I train, I double up on my ashwagandha.
Yeah.
I feel same with the magnesium glycinate at night. I find that I sleep like noticeably better.
Well, both of those help suppress cortisol a bit. They're called the ashwagandha especially is an adaptogen. So it's called they're sold under what's quote unquote adrenal support. They absolutely can. And phosphatidylserine's another one that does the same type of thing.
Not heard of that one.
Yeah, phosphatidylserine is actually probably one of the most powerful ones with that. If you're having a real problem with if Carrie will have a person that comes in that has some sleep issues, and she'll actually do a cortisol profile where now not blood but salivary, which is really important because the blood
salivary.
Yeah, like Ivan Salivary, the local guy. But saliva cortisol seems to be a better predictor of where you're actually at any time. And what you'll do is you'll get saliva cortisols for 4 or 5 times during a 24-hour period, and then submit it to the lab, and you'll get like a cortisol curve. And most of us, if it's working correctly, you'll start having a rise in cortisol in the morning, which is what helps wakes you up. It will rise throughout the day, and then in the evening, it'll start to fall. That's a natural, what we call diurnal rhythm or circadian rhythm of cortisol. Some people have it flipped a little bit. Some people, they'll start having cortisol rising when it shouldn't be, like at night especially. And obviously that'll give you a sleep problem because it's very stimulatory. So phosphatidylserine in that case is one of the things you can do to kind of blunt that evening cortisol thing. But anyway.
Especially after like the late night workout.
Absolutely, because it's a stress response. And that's why, going back to our previous episodes, getting that kind of carb refeed after a real heavy workout.
That's big also.
Will help prevent that cortisol secretion too, because then your body's like, okay, they're feeding me. That dummy's finally, they're killing me, but they're feeding me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I do find that for people that train at night, that if you end up getting some decent rounds in, or you got a good workout, you know you did, but you're not just, because sometimes I have like where I only get 3 rounds in.
And then you want a tub of ice cream.
And then I'm like, bring it on, Ben. Bring your boy Jerry.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
We going to town.
Hilarious. But it's
like, yeah, don't like BS yourself. Like you had a good training. If I do that, our little ground turkey or ground beef with rice.
Oh man, it's legit.
And if I feel like I'm eating that fogo de chao.
Yeah.
Because it's like, especially when you like train hard.
Oh,
and then
so good.
It doesn't matter if it's that most basic meal.
Yep.
It tastes so good.
Oh my God, because your body needs it. It's like, yes.
Olivia puts a little sour cream in there, and I'm like, oh, she loves me. She's treating me.
But it's really important, though.
Yeah.
To get
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I noticed recently when I didn't eat enough food, like it carried over. So like, let's say I had a day where I didn't eat enough, and then I trained, and then the next day I trained, and again, I didn't consume enough during the day. My sleep just is absolute trash.
Well, so real quick, we'll kind of get into that a little bit. So muscle glycogen, which is the sugar, just, we've talked about this several times before, is what your muscles store sugar as. It's glycogen, right? It's your internal starch, basically.
Have you ever heard the Chris D'Elia ripping on Brian Callen? Because Brian Callen brings up glycogen.
I haven't heard that specific one, but I love watching him rip on him.
He's like, hey, that's boring as fuck. You're talking about Callen glycogen.
Doesn't have a lab coat on.
Yeah, he goes, Chris D'Elia looks at someone else. He goes, if I look at you and you're not wearing a lab coat, you got to stop talking about glycogen.
That's actually very funny.
And then he looks at him and he goes, look at that.
He doesn't have one.
Sorry.
No, that's hilarious. He's one of my favorites. Yeah. He looks like a raptor or something.
Oh, for sure.
An eagle or
There's a guy at a church that looks just like him.
Really?
I will take a photo.
Looks just like Chris D'Elia.
I mean, he has short hair.
Yeah.
But that homeless bird thing.
Yeah. Got him. Interesting.
Hopefully he doesn't listen to the podcast.
I know, right? You're in trouble. Well, you have the disclaimer. You're fine.
Right.
So.
I mean, you already used the R word, so.
Yeah.
Nice.
I know.
Carrie did the other day too, and she goes with a capital R.
Was a kid right in front of her?
No, it was one of our favorite people from the academy, Jake.
Oh, I mean, come on.
But she wasn't calling him that, but it was just funny.
I teach retards.
It was pretty funny.
Love the goofy bastards.
So the
something about marrying him. Okay, keep going.
The glycogen thing.
Yes.
So it's really interesting that when you get glycogen, which is the storage form of sugar, into your muscle, it doesn't come out. It won't. It's a one-way valve, basically. Unlike the liver that can kind of take it in and pass it out. And it's that way for a reason. So we can have a reserve if we, let's say we're in a hunter-gatherer situation, there's danger. So you can sprint and run away from a predator or whatever, someone, right? It's an emergency reserve because, we start utilizing that quite a bit when we kick in to the intensity that we can't utilize oxygen effectively, right? So we'll start using more of that muscle glycogen. Well, that stuff's got to be replaced. And the brain looks at that as like a big warning light. Hey, dummy, your glycogen's low. We may need that again in the future. We got to refill that. If you don't take in some starch to get that stuff refilled, your body will start to do it for you, and it doesn't do it in a good way. And cortisol will actually be secreted because it liberates the liver from sugar, from glucose, and it will take some of your amino acids from protein, and it will take them from muscle if it needs to. But it will then start converting that into sugar to kind of try to refill that again. Okay. So basically you're getting a stress response for not refeeding that is the bottom line.
Interesting.
And that's why you're not, the downside of not sleeping is not because you're not refilling the muscle glycogen. It's because of the response to you not doing this. The cortisol, which is then keeping you with stimulatory. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had another question off the glycogen. Creatine.
Yeah.
I was literally going to bring that up.
Were you?
I wrote it down on my thing. I was like, I'm seeing it everywhere too.
The question?
No, I've just been seeing people posting about it everywhere.
Oh, about creatine.
Yeah.
So I know a guy that started taking creatine. He's taken it before, but he just got on the bandwagon. And he was wondering, he feels like he's cramping more. And so he asked me, do I need to hydrate more now that I'm taking creatine? Is that normal to cramp more? He's always had cramping issues. He's actually trans, so he's a female to male.
Gotcha.
So he has some lady parts that cause cramping.
I see.
But he's always had that issue, but now he's having muscle cramps.
Well, creatine will pull in some water too. You know, people will say that you can get a little. Some people get a little bloated.
Yeah,
with
well,
it.
But it's temporary, right?
I always thought that creatine helped, like hold moisture in the muscle.
Yeah, but think about this though. It's not when we talk about dehydration in the muscle causing cramping. Yeah, dehydration is bad, but typically, if you're pulling, it's like diluting your electrolytes. Theoretically. So, you know, it's like if I had a glass of let's say I had a glass of electrolyte solution and then I dumped, and then it was only a quarter full and I dumped 3/4 more in of just pure water. That concentration of electrolytes is going to be very diminished, right? It's going to dilute it. So there may be some of that going on where like the magnesium and all those things like that, he's not getting a good proportion, or it's maybe you could have some wash away stuff, washing out some of the like magnesium especially is the big cramping one. I would see if that person's getting enough magnesium. I would highly doubt that they are.
Okay.
If they're having muscle cramps.
They listen to this, so they will know who I'm talking about. From
Yeah.
Lady part spot.
Yeah, I will let you take all that.
Phil's just on fire today, isn't he?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
He's like,
I had a Mountain Dew before I came.
It's fine. No, I mean,
disclaimer.
well, there's a disclaimer, right? It absolves you from, it's like, when you sit on the mats and you slap and bump, right? That's consent. You basically just consented to whatever.
Right. Fist bump.
Yeah, exactly. So I would, but to his question, it usually is a transient thing. If that happens, it usually won't last long.
Yeah.
But I would definitely make sure you're up on your magnesium, especially like magnesium glycinate or some type of good form of magnesium.
Best to take magnesium at night.
I do. I think it helps me sleep better.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as if you're getting it in.
Okay. Good brand.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely get a good one.
What's
so brands? So as long as whatever brand you get is fine, but as long as you like we've talked about before, good manufacturing processes, you should see the GMP label on there. That the place that's making it has been inspected, right?
Who do we have, Liv?
Zoo. I'm pretty sure they have a GMP.
ZOO?
ZHOU.
Okay.
It might, who knows? I don't know. But the thing is the form of magnesium, not the brand, but the form is important.
Yeah.
So don't stay away from magnesium oxide. That tends to go right through you. And again, that's
Citrate.
that's what we usually use to treat constipation is mag oxide because it works really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, any of the what we call the magnesium chelates, in other words, they're chelated to an amino acid like glycine, like glycinate,
Yeah.
citrate, right? Any of those. aspartate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of those, and I like 3 and 8 for, because it crosses the blood-brain barrier and gets into the brain a little bit too. So you gotta get a mixed bag magnesium. Yeah.
Variety pack.
They have some formulations that have a bunch of forms and kind of already pre-mixed together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before you jump on the next question, Bill.
Sure.
I just want to bring up creatine because me and Bill have both noticed like people just really pushing it lately, or not pushing it, but like talking about it more and more. Mm-hmm. So are you able to go over kind of like why that would be a beneficial supplement to take? Because I know we kind of briefly touched on it.
We did actually in depth in our
was in depth
in our supplement one.
That's how good I remember.
No, it's okay. But
just maybe bullet point. Like
yeah. So,
but check out a deep dive.
Yeah, we had a supplements for BJJ episode we did that creatine was one of the big ones. Yeah. First of all, it's been studied extensively.
We'll put that link in the description.
Yeah, I'll link it.
It's very safe, and we know that. You can't really say safe unless we've seen years and years and years.
As in like a side effect profile is very low.
Exactly. Over years, we haven't really seen any problems with it. Okay.
Because it's been around for
a long time, and it's one of the most studied performance supplements.
Kind of like ivermectin.
Well, here we go. Yeah.
Go.
All right. But to your point, that actually is very well studied.
Very tested. There's a lot of studies, all that kind of stuff.
For years and years and years. Right. So, but anyway, what it does is provides a building blocks, kind of a supply for the creatine phosphate system. Remember when we talked about energy systems? Mm-hmm. There's an immediate, so best way to talk about this is if I walked out the door of the studio here and there was a wolf that all of a sudden wanted to chase me, I probably wouldn't get far, but initially I would go off into a full sprint to run. That first about 10 seconds or so of all-out effort is not powered by the Krebs cycle. It's not powered by glycogen in the muscle. It's powered by the creatine phosphate system, where creatine will basically it's a cycle where it will donate a phosphate and then get recycled with more. So creatine is actually the carrier for these high energy phosphate systems to allow a ready supply of ATP basically. So it re-energizes ADP to ATP, which is our energy currency, which is used for all our processes in the body, right? So that first 10 seconds of all-out effort will cycle the creatine phosphate system. And so what this is doing is giving you a ready store of creatine, okay, to help with that. And no surprise that it helps with max effort, those type of exercises, recovery from max effort, things like that. So, and then after that 10 seconds, we start shifting into the glycolytic pathway, right? Where we start going to burn muscle sugar. And that's why you can't maintain a full sprint for too long, right? Before you have to slow down and allow the oxidative system to start coming in where you can supply oxygen for, like a marathon runner, right?
What about the person that doesn't, the benefit for the person that doesn't do those kind of workouts, whether that's jiu-jitsu or CrossFit, like those high intensity moment or physical activities? Maybe they only go for walks. Maybe they're older. Maybe they do light workouts. Like, what's the benefit for them? Because I see a lot.
Not as much. Because
but there is something.
There is, but you need a stimulus. It will help. It helps performance. It helps you get in more reps. But you need to do it it'd be like taking a protein supplement. Yes, you need protein, but if you're not giving an input to your body to utilize more for instance, like if you're
like putting 110 octane in your car, but you don't redline it. You don't. You don't.
Exactly. You're not going to see a big benefit. Now, the muscle mass they're seeing, why it's important, it helps the anabolic response in older people, but you got to give the stimulus for the anabolic response, which is resistance training.
I see.
Right? So it's something that helps that become more impactful and a better stimulus to the anabolic response.
Yeah.
But you just can't sit there and take a bunch of supplements and eat and expect that to automatically do something without giving a stimulus.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good question.
That makes sense. We did have a comment on YouTube that said they have a suggestion from a guy named Elite Hobbyist.
Oh, I know who that is.
It says, every time Professor Chris, that's you, makes a joke, please accompany it with a background laugh track. Maybe put Lawrence's laughter in there because it's kind of sad when he makes a joke and no one laughs except you.
I think it's actually very funny. Having cricket, I make jokes for my own.
It's the best on video.
Yeah, because there's just like this blank look.
And you trying to hold in your own laughter.
Hey, man. Well, Carrie's always told me I laugh at my own jokes.
I mean,
why?
You're hilarious.
I think so.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure she does too.
Yeah, and by the way, Mr. Elite Hobbyist has demerits for calling me Dr. Professor, and when I see him again, I'm gonna take care of that.
Yeah, you need to give him a digit check.
We're gonna give him something.
Yeah.
Do you want me to ask my question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do I say who it is, or just a Instagram message?
You can just ask, or you can just
say who it is.
Oh, okay. So Anna messaged us on Instagram,
and we're talking about my spawn.
Yes.
That was on an episode.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And she said, Bill mentioned that when he first started, he was too gentle, conceded positions, etc. I find that I struggle with that too and would like to work on being more aggressive or even just confident, deliberate, move to move. Does he have any advice or things that helped him develop that more? Thanks.
Did you when you started, were you on the gentle side or were you were the opposite?
I have had a problem, and Andrew could tell you this too. Mm-hmm. Late into my training, through purple belt, even brown, especially when I started getting stressed, I'm actually way too rigid. And maybe sometimes we'll try to muscle things more than I should.
And when you were a white belt, were you not just rigid, but were you like a little spazzy or over intensive and overly intense?
I don't, compared to where I am now. Yeah,
of course, right.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know how there's there's people on either end, and then there's some people in the middle.
Well, you would have to ask other people. I just reflecting on myself.
We actually have some people here today because this is an intervention.
Okay, good. All right. We've had enough. You're a black belt now. We can't do this anymore. I came in with a fairly strong athletic background, and I felt like I relied on athleticism more. I don't feel like I was spazzy, but I was definitely too rigid.
Yeah. Right.
That helps.
And that's just been a continual battle that you're just
continuing to get my nervous system to kind of relax. Like even as a brown belt, and you saw this firsthand when I was competing last year. You were like, dude, and Andrew said, dude, all of a sudden it went right back to, and I was like, man,
just off guard pulls. I mean, that's when
off
we really
guard pulls, totally right, and that's the worst time you want to do that, right?
Fight or flight thing, I think, probably
for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
Because mentally you were putting yourself in a certain space for competition. Yep. Which then your natural instincts came on, and that was I'm going to tighten up, I'm going to grip hard, and
what was interesting when I actually did that competition, I was able to actually get in a better headspace and relax more actually at the competition, which is the first time ever I was able to do that, regardless of the outcome. Right. I think it was a big win for me as far as that goes. But yeah, that's always been a struggle.
Yeah. And preparing for a competition, one of the huge benefits are those moments. Because you might think that you're kind of past doing that or defaulting to that, until we were a month out and we're literally just practicing guard pulls, and you were like kind of hurting your back.
I did hurt my back because
it was
boom. It was not soft. It wasn't good.
Right.
And it's interesting. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but to that point, even I'll notice like when I have like bad sleep or something where my nervous system's up a little more, I'll notice myself even still like, I'm like, what am I doing? Like over gripping and like, so I'm conscious. I have to constantly think about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's also encouraging though for people to hear that like that stuff just doesn't go away.
No.
Like you have to intentionally work on some of these things that are issues.
I feel like I've been wired pretty tight as far as my flight or fight response, probably from childhood.
Sure. Still waiting for Dad to come back.
What's interesting though, we probably talked about this before when we talked about that episode on stress. In utero, you start getting set up for that. So if your mom is under a lot of stress, whatever it is, it could be physiological, it could be environmental, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
There's a survival advantage to the developing fetus if that stress response is already built up to be able to turn on easily. Because because then, we've seen this with families of the Holocaust survivors. Right, all the way from World War II, where we're looking 3 generations out now, and they have markers. We can actually look at what's called epigenetic markers of the stress response is elevated without even an experience in it. And we're talking about generations down the line.
Epigenetics is where stuff gets passed down, right?
No, both. So genetics and epigenetics is what's on your DNA. Epigenetics is DNA. Pieces of DNA make up genes. Sections of, like, you'll have a section of DNA which becomes a gene for like eye color, or whatever. Epigenetics determines what gets turned on and off. So if you have let's say you have a section of your DNA set for producing hormones for the stress response. Okay, if you are born into a stressed environment, that will have a big on signal all the time, right? It will be expressed, be very good at getting that gene expressed into the protein, which is the hormone.
They show this with the mouses and electrocuting mouse or something like that, right?
Yeah, you can look at generational responses. But in utero even, so you're born, because it makes sense for a survival mechanism. If the fetus is getting a signal through the mom that there's something out there that's stressful, that's dangerous maybe, if you come out of the womb basically already having an enhanced stress response, not so much in humans, but in other, there's a survival advantage to that. But in most modern society, these stresses aren't life and limb, right? They're just, these social stresses, all these kind of things. But anyway, you can get programmed, so to speak, right, for an enhanced stress response. And you can reverse it over time, but it takes a lot of work, because then you got to convince everything that, hey, no, this isn't a dangerous environment anymore. But if you're kind of wired that way epigenetically from birth, it takes a lot to overcome. You'll have an enhanced startle response. A lot of people like that have anxiety a lot, very self-reflective.
So what's an EpiPen?
That's different. That's epinephrine.
Okay, I have a question.
Epinephrine is just adrenaline. Epigenetics means about or around the gene.
Okay. Yeah. So I have a question about that, even though this wasn't the original question, Bill.
No, because we'll get back to Annis. Yeah.
So,
John Haywood would be proud that we'll circle back.
Circling back, yeah.
Because there's often I throw curveballs and then we lose whatever we're talking about.
Oh, dang it.
So, my grandmother, on my mom's side, had a very stressful childhood. Then my mom had a very horrible childhood. Now, I know that I suffer from anxiety, easy to startle, definitely have a quick fight or flight tendency. But I notice that my older sister is even more on edge. When it comes down to being passed along, does the first child get hit with it more, or is it dependent on the situation at the time of the pregnancy?
Yeah, and so that's a great question. I haven't looked at the literature enough to give you a definitive answer, but I will speculate that it is the environment in utero.
Okay.
So in other words, if your sister was in utero when it was super stressful for your mom,
first child who's unknown
for whatever reason, right? Yeah. And let's say a middle child was born and things were kind of more chill. And then let's say the third child, there was another situation where the mother was very, very stressed, right? I think it would be more enhanced in that first and third child specifically, because you're programming things while you're developing.
But But it's also something that comes through, like if my grandmother had a lot of stress, she's going to pass it on to
it's
my
still
mom.
heritable. And it's so complex because then you're like, well, because they're already stressed out, do you know what I mean? It's like this, is it a chicken or the egg thing at some time? But but certainly we've shown that in the generations of Holocaust survivors, that very thing. Really interesting stuff. But to her, we're going back to, we were talking about what I've struggled with.
Yeah.
And then you
Anna's question, because she
wants to know how to be more aggressive, not
well, and by the way,
position.
just so you know, Anna is very much like me. If that helps anyway, as far as, and she won't mind me telling any of this, she knows she has a very heightened stress response, very similar to you, all of us that have, she definitely has some epigenetic stuff with that.
Sure. And starting on that side of the spectrum, which is a little more not aggressive enough, basically. Especially the longer you're in jiu-jitsu, the more you see it's fairly stereotypical that there'll be some people that are over here. It's hard for them to channel that dog in them or whatever it is and put a lot of effort in. And then there's some that are on the complete opposite, right? They both get memes. Typically the spazzy ones get the most memes.
Yeah.
I was more on the calm side or docile. And a part of it was because I paid attention to jiu-jitsu so much before I actually did it, I didn't want to be known as the spaz.
So you gotcha.
Yeah. And I didn't want to be known as like a douchey training partner and like this whole thing.
Okay.
But then as I trained, as how you train is how like you will develop. So kind of like how you train in the room is how you're going to compete. Like that's kind of like a very normal connection there.
Right.
And because I was intentionally trying to train a certain way, also I was overweight and I was always scared of gassing out because you gas out in the beginning a lot, especially if you're out of shape. And it's a horrible feeling. It's like scary to gas out and like not be able to do the warm-ups or.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I just did that last week with one of our black belts.
You broke wind on them?
No, I gassed out.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Different kind of gas.
Different kind of gas.
Okay.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did the same last week. I literally.
Gassing out kind of puts you in a fight or flight.
For sure.
Totally does.
Especially the path to gassing out. Right? And I myself, like I've been training a lot in the first couple weeks of the month and I feel it. The last three training sessions, I've really, really felt like I can feel, and maybe there's also an age.
Basically allostatic load, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Kind of catching up with you a little bit.
Yeah, because I think I'm on my, was it yesterday? I trained, and that was, I think, number 16 on the month.
And it's
the 15th.
Yeah.
And I don't train Tuesdays. So there's 2 days in there, and like I didn't train today.
I feel like we had a podcast about this recently.
Sure. And you got your little voodoo doll.
Yeah.
You're like, it's catching up to him.
You accused me of having dolls the other time.
I did. Well,
I do have one. I have yours.
I have seen large colonial dolls.
Yes. Yours is very disturbing looking, by the way.
Uncanny. So what was happening was I didn't want to train too hard because I didn't want to gas. I didn't want to train too hard because I didn't want to be known as a spaz, right? So my style, although, yes, I was obtaining skills, my training style was becoming kind of lazy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unintentionally. So I would concede sweeps. Like if I'm getting swept and it maybe wasn't even like a super clean sweep, I could have
Somebody could have posted or something.
Yeah. Right. Not allowed it. Had a better base in a moment, right? Like, and I would just concede because it's tough to post out and then kind of dogfight a little bit, right? And then push back and not allow that. That's a difficult thing to do physically. But it's going to take your energy bar down a little bit, which gets you into the scary part.
Yeah.
And also sometimes you have to do things that are they're not mean. It's just grappling,
Right.
For example, Andrew and I were rolling a couple days ago. We start standing, and he shoots in. At the same moment, I'm aggressively shooting a grip. I basically punched him in the face with my fingers, like not a punch, but like a.
It just is a timing thing.
Yeah. Like it went into his cheek or something like that, completely inadvertently. Right. If he shot slower or I went to grip slower, probably wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. But that's not real.
That's just part of grappling.
That's none of us were butthurt about it.
Of course.
So these kind of awkward moments where there's a clashing, or not even just an accidental like bump or like that, but where there's some grittiness. Mm-hmm. It's part of grappling. Mm-hmm. That happens. And knowing that it is okay, and your partner is not going to just think that you're, because that might be one thing that Anna's thinking about, is she doesn't want to, like, if she starts ramping it up, especially when she's typically not the person that ramps up, people are she might be fearing, as I have, and I think Olivia has at times, fearing that, what's up with Anna? She pissed at me?
Well,
or is she pissed in general? Or,
it's interesting. You'd have to talk with her, but, if you've ever watched her lift weights or anything like that, she's very strong. Mm-hmm. And that might be feeding into it too. Like she maybe is reticent to put that other gear in.
For sure. And the thing is, so she lifts weights. She's strong. She has the ability to channel, because it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. When you're doing a squat and you're in the hole, and you gotta get through, and you're going through. That is the same mental space to reach in those. You're about to get swept. It's not a clean sweep, but they're getting you, and then you got it right there. That's when you channel it. No, you still might get swept, but you might not, right? Mm-hmm. And a big part of that's going to be that mental side, and you're going to get swept way less if you don't ever channel that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, how about like pulling the trigger on like opportunities that you see?
Yes. Right. So that's from like a defensive side, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're getting swept, you're getting pushed over, you're getting someone's attacking you. Mm-hmm. Having that grit, channeling that grit, not being fearful that someone's going to think a certain way about you, or be offended. That's not to say that someone won't. If they do, that's their issue.
I think she has a really good gym, though.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But even at good gyms, you can still have moments.
Yeah, sure.
I have moments of weakness all the time. I might be one of the only people in our gym that have those weak moments, but I can fully admit that I do. Now, that's not on you, though, right? That can be on that person.
Sure.
And they have their place to grow.
Sure.
And be gracious with them. But for the most part, it's not going to be a big deal.
Right.
And even if she does she's got some strength to her, even if she starts using the strength, no one's going to think anything. If anything, she might get a comment, right, of like, oh, you're putting, that's a compliment. Yeah. It's very easy. If she's anything like me, and after we've talked a little bit, I think she probably is a little bit, even like Olivia, is that comment we can reverse in our head to be like a bad thing.
Oh, they didn't like that. I need to tone it down.
Oh, they mentioned it. That's bad.
I gotcha.
I can't do that anymore. Like, that's very easy to do in our head.
That sounds like her too, a little bit.
But it's not what it is.
Right.
It's them. It's almost a compliment. Mm-hmm. I remember when I would start ramping. Black belt Kyle, made a comment before, but it was I said sorry after he made the comment, and he was like, "No, I'm saying like it's awesome."
Oh yeah,
right. He was encouraging me in that moment. And now you might not always get someone to encourage you after you apologize, but don't default to you did something wrong. Now, something that helped me tremendously when I was, I know Andrew had I talked with Andrew, and I was like, what do I need to work on? I think I was a blue belt, maybe beginning purple, something in that area. I was like, what do I need to work on? And he just straight up told me, assert yourself a little bit more. Like, I'm not saying it perfectly how he did, but he mentioned some of those things, and I knew it. Right? I knew I needed to work on those, but I didn't want to because that's not my style. That's what I tell myself. That's not my style. Right? Well, jiu-jitsu is kind of part of stretching our comfort zone, right? That comes with the journey, right? Sometimes on stuff that we don't want to do, sometimes on stuff that we do want to do, right? I'm a mental head case. And we've talked personally about this kind of stuff.
Why do we have to bring it up again?
From even when I played baseball competitively when I was younger, that was one of the negatives on my list. Because I would have scouts come out, they'd talk to my mom, they'd talk to my coaches, you get a plus and minuses, good arm strength, good, blah, 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 blah. I had attitude issues, right? Old Pops wasn't around to put me in check.
Yep, I hear you.
And my mom did the best she can. And that was something that I had always struggled. I beat myself up more than... I'm sure there's some people listening that can identify, and I know me and you have talked. And it can outwardly come out a certain way. And I know that, but it's my internal dialogue that comes out verbally sometimes.
The demons.
And a lot of people are very fortunate that they don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Good for you. Unfortunately, I do. And, I'll always be a work in progress on that. I'm getting off onto a diatribe here.
No, I like it, though. Like because I can relate.
Yeah. But that's something, and I identified that's one of the reasons, besides getting distracted from baseball with extracurricular stuff, that I knew was a negative from the get-go. And I didn't want that to come out with jiu-jitsu. Because it would come out with, I did competitive gaming also.
Yeah.
It didn't come out quite as much with that.
Do you think you overcompensated then with jiu-jitsu then?
Maybe.
The other way?
Maybe in the beginning for sure.
In the beginning? Yeah.
Maybe. And there's a chance. But at the same time, I think I also kept it more internal.
Oh,
I didn't necessarily have the when I was younger, I'm 17, 18 years old, and if I strike out and I throw the bat to the dugout or some crazy stuff like that, I literally did that, in front of scouts.
Yeah.
There was less scouts at the next game.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, I think it's still in there. I'm more mature now. I'm not 18, 17, 16-year-old kid, but and I have better control of it. And jiu-jitsu's helped me through that. But sorry, getting back to the original question. Sorry about that.
What did you do to really help that?
With the aggressive?
Yeah, to kind of turn it on a little bit.
Yeah. So a big thing was telling my training partner, number one, do it with the right trainer. You don't have to do it with every single training partner, but find the right one and say, hey, I'm working on, I'm trying to be more intense. It's nothing against you. I'm trying to work on my intensity. So if I'm trying to be more intense, I'm not being mean or I would literally fear that they would think I'm being mean or I'm angry at them or something like that. That's a real fear. I know some people don't. That's unfathomable to some people that people think that way. But a lot more people think that way than I think the people that think that's crazy realize. Right? Yes. I know Olivia's thought that way as well. And she'll probably jump in with something that helped her from an upper belt. She'll probably pipe in a minute. But doing that with your trusted training partner, I know I did that with Zarate because number one, Zarate was he was a higher rank than me, so I knew he had good control. He has the ability to roll really hard.
But he's probably one of the nicest guys on the planet.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
You can have the most drag out, fight for your life. It's like you're attacking him like a shark and he's kicking you in the face like it's Jaws. And then as soon as the round ends, he was just snarling in your face.
Yeah.
And now he's got the most beautiful smile.
Yeah. You couldn't have had a better one. That's a great example.
I was able to identify Zarate and be like, hey, I'm trying to work on my intensity. And he's like, cool. Yeah, that's great. And that didn't mean he attacked me.
No.
He waited for me.
But he knew that you were going to do that.
And so when I started, he could just meet me. Mm-hmm. Right? And that was huge. So identifying training partners that you can do that with, right? Mm-hmm. It's probably going to, like Glenn, I had the same thing.
Yeah.
When we were both, because we started about the same time. So that was nice. But you're going to have your own people that you can do that with, but just being straight up with them and telling that, and then challenge yourself, because what's going to happen is this is where Olivia will jump in. They will help stoke you as well. Right, Liv?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you want me to tell?
Yeah.
We're talking about Sabrina?
Yeah.
Okay. So
name drop.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
She's getting street cred. So, yeah, when I was trying to channel some intensity and really work on that, Sabrina, I think, was super helpful in like kind of like opening that door for me, because she was like, okay, we're just gonna go, hard, but when we were rolling, she would be like, go, go, go. Like she was verbally telling me to go. Like when I wanted to concede a position, she'd be like, no, don't, fight it, and stuff like that. And I needed that external confirmation to keep doing these things.
Like in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus, instead of listening to myself. And so it was really helpful to me. Like to me, it was a huge improvement, and I really appreciated and thanked her for that. Because, sometimes, like I said, sometimes you just need that verbal confirmation, like keep going, keep pushing yourself, like, fight for that grip, fight for, don't give up.
Yeah.
Because, if I don't have that external like voice, I'm going to listen to my voice, and my voice is going to say, let go, give up, concede. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if it's not literally saying that, that's what I'm thinking.
And if you're not feeling like you're going to go through waves. So you're going to have like, okay, I'm going to roll hard tonight. You'll pick your couple people that you give them your disc. Hey, I'm going to try to roll hard, and like, I'm just trying to challenge myself. So if I'm being too gentle, just tell me and push me. Right. And then that doesn't mean you have to do that every single round, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Or even every training session. Like if there's somewhere you're just like, I'm not feeling it, you just tell them, hey, I'm not gonna push it too hard on this one.
Well, because the idea is to have that when you need it. It shouldn't be you shouldn't have one gear.
Yes,
but you should be able to use that gear when you need to use it.
Yeah, and doing that where if you're in the growth period, you're gonna have to challenge yourself, and that's where. Maybe every class that you go to, at least one roll, do that. Work into.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a good advice.
Work into doing a full
habit.
Yeah, start creating that habit of like, okay, there's gonna be one roll, and maybe part of that is gonna be going with someone that you don't really like, because they go intense and not in a dangerous way. Like we're taking that part out of it. You're not gonna pick the new white belt that is like kind of crazy. But the one that you kind of fear a little bit, Mo, for me, is like,
for sure,
I'm gonna gas.
Yep.
I'm not gonna get a positive position most likely.
Oh, I know.
And I'm gonna want to cry after.
Well, you can feel it during the roll where as the energy is depleting.
Yeah.
Where you're like going down that, getting pulled under, so to speak.
And
yeah.
And that's another thing, is being scared of going back to being scared of gassing.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to be able to like not gas as easily is stretching your limits.
Yep.
And getting to the gassing point. And what happens is, okay, maybe you find yourself, you're like, I just tried wrestling, I couldn't do it. Wrestling's hard. Defense.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you doing on defense? You probably shouldn't be doing just this. What are your hands doing? Are they full? Do you have grips? Framing? We're not framing like this. We're right. Like you can now work on some things in a real fight or flight situation, which could be a self-defense situation where you're actually really tired and you need to be completely defensive.
Right.
Right. you want to experience that in that moment rather than in a dangerous moment.
Well, that's the whole value of this martial art.
Yeah.
I think.
For sure.
Is getting comfortable in really uncomfortable situations, or at least a relative amount of comfort. Yeah.
So the biggest things for me were to start getting more, like challenge myself to get more aggressive, is just to tell my partner I'm going to be more aggressive. Identify people that are okay with that and just telling them. Especially if they're an experienced person, that doesn't mean, like, because sometimes you also feel like, well, if I tell them that means they're going to go harder and beat the hell out of me.
There's open a new fear.
Right.
But that's why you choosing that person, though.
Exactly.
That's going to work with you.
If they're a purple belt or a brown belt or something like that, and you're doing it with them, sure, they're going to match your intensity and they're going to be right above your skill level. Yeah. But it's not going to be this thing where, okay, now you're ramping up, you're getting tapped 8 times.
Because I know Anna's already kind of told me she's kind of has a upper belt training partner that is really good to work with.
Perfect.
So yeah, exactly.
Perfect. You just you be upfront with them and you tell them what you're working on. I mean, I think we've done something similar where we've been like, I'm working on this, so let's really challenge. Yeah, we've done it multiple times.
I did this with one of our other black belts on. I'm trying to bring my leg lock game up to where I think it needs to be, and rolling with intention with someone else that's really good at it, right? And saying, hey, I'm really going to be working on this stuff. So,
I did that with Cody.
Yeah,
Cody. I was like, hey, I have all right defense, but that's about it on leg lock. So I was like, let's go into some nasty waters.
I like it, man. That's good. That's very good advice. I think she'll.
Hopefully, it's helpful. I'd love for her to check in.
She will,
and give us an update if she was able to do any of those things.
Well, I bother her at least weekly. We have our weekly phone call.
Yeah.
So we always talk about it.
Situationals can help with this too.
Yeah.
Starting in certain spots and knowing that, okay, we're doing situation. It's not a 6-minute round or a 7 or whatever it is. Where you have to worry about your cardio. Like just if you want to take baby steps, take that little piece out, right? Do situational sparring first to score, submit, or sweep from whatever position you're in, right? And make it a position where there's going to be action. So then you have little mini sprints of, and you can take your little break, 30 seconds. The thing is, when we get tired, we think we need 6 minutes to regain our breath, especially for grapplers. Not typically.
Who are you talking to? I think I at least need 6 minutes.
in a roll.
I'm joking. Yes, I know what you mean.
How dare you?
I know what you
mean. I'm talking to people that are under 75.
Okay. Fair enough.
And so we often think we need a lot of time, but usually, you
know what? Sorry.
No,
go ahead. I was going to say, just thinking of another recommendation for Anna, if she's able to control the clock and as in do some rounds where they're only 3-minute rounds with somebody, that's going to give you that. Doing a 6-minute round and knowing you're going to have to go hard
and pace yourself.
Is difficult. But when you only have 3 minutes, it makes it a lot more doable because it's 3 minutes. I can do 3 minutes. Even if I get tired, it's just 3 minutes and it'll be up. But that kind of helps you to get into working that without the fear of the fatigue necessarily.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And with situationals, like what I was saying is we typically only need 15 seconds to really catch our breath and we're still, heart rate's up and stuff, we're working out.
I know exactly what you mean.
But that 15 seconds, if you really take notice, it can drop down pretty quickly. And when you do that, if you try to do it in a safe position or where, you can apply pressure if you're on top or something. But going to what Olivia said, 3 minutes, something I was doing when we were doing comp drilling was, or in the day class, I like to do 1.5 minutes in a situational, in a position, and I give points to someone specific. So let's say it's me and you. I say, Chris, you're starting in my X guard.
Great.
Okay. But you're down by 2 points. You have 1.5 minutes. Okay. So you don't have to worry about gassing. I mean, you still might gas in a minute and a half. That's
sure.
fine. But you're not going to have
You're not
5 minutes of
stuck under someone
misery.
For,
so I got to not get swept and try to pass your guard.
Yes. That stokes aggressive behavior because I have you in kind of a tied up guard.
For sure.
You are going to have to address these things with fervent, right? Is that right?
I like it.
Yeah, with a fervent mentality.
I like it.
And you're going to have to go. Minute and a half. That goes by quick. You'll start to kind of play with the grips or something. Then you'll be like, oh, there's only 45 seconds?
Yep.
Go. Or don't start so deep into a tangled up guard, right? Like it's just open guard, something like that. Like I wouldn't start in closed guard because that's the ultimate tangle up. If someone really just wants to hold on to you, they can do that pretty easily. Or if you're on bottom, sure, maybe you have a minute and a half. You're on bottom. You're down, right, by just 1 point, or you're down by 3 points. So you're gonna have to sweep and pass right off the sweep, right? Or knee on belly, or something to accrue the desire. But put a short time, 3 minutes, minute and a half.
So you have this short time period, goal oriented type of thing, right? Where you can just really get after it. I like that,
and it takes away a little bit of the danger. I think when it comes to when we do these longer rounds and we're promoting high intensity, like because when I'm doing that in the day class, I'm pushing. I'm like, do not concede, like like really kind of pushing the mental intensity side. If it's gets to a point where if it's not a minute and a half and now it's 5 minutes, well, they're going to get into these neutral positions, maybe both standing, maybe into a heavy scrambly, like kind of dogfight back and forth. And what can happen is that's when like an injury can happen, right? Because there's body weight falling, a lot of intensity.
For sure.
Not that there's not a place for that kind of training.
I know what you mean, though.
Not saying that.
I know what you mean.
But we're kind of taking that part out because we're working on this one small piece here.
Well, exactly. It's like you're saying, shrinking your jiu-jitsu down to what, and being very intentional about what you're doing with your training. Yeah. Really good advice. And Olivia, I really like your input about taking that time away and just now it's like these chunks of time here where you can kind of break it up.
Yeah. We've been doing that in the women's class where we do 3-minute rounds.
Yeah, Carrie is telling me.
Yeah, I really like those.
Rotating partners every
I've noticed with just to put it out there, with both you and Carrie and Brittany, all the women I've rolled with since you guys started doing that, I think the level is coming up. I mean, no, I'm just telling you. I think you guys are, and I mean this in a good way. I think there's more aggression when it needs to happen.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I've noticed it myself.
Because Andrea's so aggressive herself. She's bleeding into you guys, just giving her.
In a good way, she is. She pulls. She will, if she sees the opening, she pulls the trigger.
Oh, I know it. To the left side only.
Yeah, she's gonna whip your little butt, dude.
She's gonna be mean about it.
Notice I'm not saying a damn thing.
She tried standing wrist locking me.
Good.
3 times.
You deserved it.
I did actually.
Probably deserved it.
I did.
Yeah. So that's really good advice, and I'm sure she'll give you some feedback on that because she, that resonated with her. I think when she heard you say that.
Oh, awesome. That'll be good.
Yeah.
If you guys can comment on the YouTube page with anything you guys want us to talk about, or if you got questions about any of the stuff we're talking about, future topics, we're going to have Professor Mohammed Mustafa.
Yep.
Mustafa or Mustafa?
No, it's Mustafa.
Mustafa, yeah.
How dare you?
I was checking you.
How dare you?
You were confused. Yeah, those little doe eyes. So we're going to have him on. He's got a cool story about training in Brazil for years and then competing down there, not knowing any English. He's got a super good wrestling background. And he's kind of like a legend in the Washington scene.
I think so. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's any gym I go to, they say, "Oh, that's where Mo trains." Like, yes.
Yeah.
So any questions? YouTube comments are great. Instagram DMs, grapplingwithpodcast@gmail.com.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thanks, everyone.